To mark his 94th birthday, South Africans from all walks of life last Thursday gathered to launch the Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi Foundation, a vehicle that will be used to celebrate his life, but also preserve his legacy. Tonight on the show, in what will undoubtedly be only one among many conversations to follow on this and other platforms, we interrogate parts of that legacy. The Watchdog starts now. Thursday's launch of the Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi Foundation incidentally came the same week South Africans across social media platforms were talking about just how Prince Buthelezi had taken to the role of traditional prime minister, including how he helped manage AmaZulu royal family dynamics ahead of the coronation of King Misuzulu Kazwelithini. Born on the 27th of August 1928, in Mahlabathini, KwaZulu, he cut his teeth in the ANC, which he joined as a member of the Youth League while studying at the University of Fort Hare. Then in 1975, he formed Inkatha Yenkululeko Yesizwe with a great deal of encouragement from the ANC's exiled leadership at the time, in particular, the man who led the organization for decades, Oliver Reginald Tambo. Now, according to Tambo's biographer, Inkatha was supposed to be, quote unquote, the reincarnation of the ANC. Well, 4 years later, however, Buthelezi and the ANC fell out. A lot, of course, happened in the decades to follow, some of which we'll be talking about this very evening. And to help us do that are two men I'll be introducing a little later. But back to what actually gave rise to this conversation, and that is the launch last week of the Prince Buthelezi Foundation. And of course, there we had our colleague who was part of the proceedings there, J.D. Paulslow, of course, attended last week's launch and prepared this particular report.
As long as I'm able, I will give my full support to this work. But my great joy, my fellow compatriots, in this moment, is knowing that the work will continue long after my own contribution.
The utterances of 94-year-old Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, who is celebrated by many. His newly founded foundation, the Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi Foundation, aims to preserve his rich history in shaping the political landscape and his legacy as one of the longest living party leaders in the country. The foundation was registered in 2022 as a public benefit and non-profit organization. It will be managed by a 12-member trust, which consists of IFP party members and family. A humbled Buthelezi acknowledged his political and societal footprint, but conceded that he wished he could have done more to steer the country in a positive direction.
I cannot shake the feeling that the work of service remains undone.
Buthelezi says his foundation will strive to pursue good governance and groom more African leaders with moral ethos whilst cultivating critical thinkers. Chairperson of the foundation, Velenkosini Hlabisa, says the idea for a foundation had been 50 years in the making.
Work on conservation alone, or on education, on nation building, on reconciliation, on constitutional democracy, or on any one of the myriad aspects of his legacy deserves not only to be honored, but to be continued.
The foundation is expected to adopt policies and a framework soon to ensure its functionality. The foundation will also be used to educate and provide support for youth development. Jade Paulser, SABC News, Durban.
Well, I am joined on the line by Mr. Velenkosini Hlabisa, the president of the IFP and successor to Prince Buthelezi. Good evening, sir. Thanks very much for your time.
Good evening, Vuyo and the viewers of the Watchdog SABC program.
Thank you, sir. I'm also joined here in studio by Dr. Richard Pithouse, who is a research associate at the Wits Institute for Social and Economic Research. He has been writing about our country's politics for decades now. Welcome to you too, sir.
Thank you.
Well, our third panelist seems to have bailed out, but of course we are going to trudge on. Remember, you too can join in the conversation. The Twitter handles are on your screen at the Watchdog SABC and Vuyo_Mvoko. Well, let me start with you, Mr. Hlabisa, if I may. I'd be keen to know, when we talk about Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi's legacy, what is the premise that as a foundation you are moving from? Who is this man in a nutshell?
Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi is one of the statesmen in South Africa and in Africa who can be relied upon. A man that you can trust, the man who devoted his entire life, working in the public life for 70 years now, promoting principles of ethics, honesty, servant leadership. He remains a beacon of hope that there are political leaders who are corrupt-free, irrespective of public service of 70 years, from the erstwhile KwaZulu government through the birth of democracy up to today. A person who embraces the future of our country, who is a center, if you look in terms of what South Africa should be. This is the man who has demonstrated beyond doubt that he is a pillar in the national parliament. They rely on him from the period of the first president, Nelson Mandela, up to now to President Ramaphosa. In the reign of the three kings in the Zulu nation, they relied on him, and even today he remains relevant and a pillar and a source of reason.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Peters, I mean, we're not short of literature that confirms that Inkatha was created with the blessings and encouragement, if not prodding, from ANC leaders. That is certainly not in dispute, whether you read Oliver Tambo's biography, whether you read Walter and Albertina Sisulu's biography, whether you read Thabo Mbeki's biographies, all confirm this.
That's absolutely correct. As you say, it's not in dispute at all. I mean, what is in dispute is what came later. I don't think it really was, for most people, in dispute in the mid-90s. But things have changed now. The moral standing of the ANC is not what it was, and I'm being polite about that. It's collapsed in for many people it's collapsed. There's a general turn to the right in society, a general sense that our democratic experiment, with its moderately at least progressive aspirations, hasn't worked. There's a deep anxiety about everything from unemployment to crime. A lot of people are turning to the right. And of course, you know, the contestation around the succession recently, the succession of the king, has placed Buthelezi in a very public role, and one that's really won a lot of people over to his side. So we find ourselves again debating the part of the legacy, especially in the 80s and 90s. I mean, this comes up sporadically. Usually there's often something on social media. Mondli Makanya, editor of City Press, often responds in a very forthright way. And then there's a sort of discussion that we're having. It goes in circles. It doesn't get finished.
Mr. Hlabisa, if I'm going to take you back, I was thinking perhaps the best way to approach this conversation is to do it chronologically. I mean, back after the Inkatha was formed, 4 years down the line, there was this big fallout between the Prince and, of course, the ANC. As someone who has traveled this road with him for many years, and you now have gotten to inherit, of course, I mean, this organization that he formed with everything that has happened and having to be the custodian of this project as the chairperson of this foundation. Are you any wiser about how that fallout came about?
Yes, Vuyo. We know how the fallout between the IFP and the ANC came into existence, because the ANC felt that the IFP, as its internal will, should resort on the use of violence means. On the contrary, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, as the leader of the then National Cultural Liberation Movement, was clear that violence cannot be applied against the apartheid government, which was heavily armed. And that is why all political parties were in exile, as they could not operate within the country. Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, as a man with foresight, he proclaimed that challenges of our country will be resolved through a negotiated settlement. And eventually, that is what led us in 1994 into a democratic dispensation through a negotiated settlement in CODESA. What we should learn is the way in which ANC thought things should be done while in exile could not be practically implemented within the country. But we are over that now. We have a responsibility to reconcile the fallout that happened between the IFP and the ANC. Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi is extending his hand for quite a long time to the leadership of the ANC at a national level. Yes, we are appreciating what the leadership of the ANC is saying in KwaZulu-Natal in wanting to ensure that this reconciliation is seen now. But the custodians from the ANC side is the president of the ANC, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, and the NEC of the ANC, together with the NEC of the IFP. All provincial structures will be gladly be accepted to support the mending of the relations that broke down between the two political parties, so that we heal the past and build a future for our generation.
I mean, it's interesting what Mr. Hlabisa says, especially on the back, of course, of the weekend reports. You would have seen or perhaps heard even the leader of the ANC, I mean, the provincial secretary of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal talking about the importance of acknowledgements that need to be made, but also, you know, for something that would be akin to acknowledging the past, but also saying we need to move forward together, which in part is what Mr. Hlabisa has just alluded to. But at the same time, from the conversations that have come out of the weekend comments, you have people, ANC diehards, who seem to keep on going to that past, which they say cannot be, erased as easily because so many things have happened, which takes me back, you're from the late 70s to your 80s, all the way to your 90s. There were people who felt that Oliver Tambo's relationship with Prince Buthelezi was particularly problematic, and that it actually compromised the ANC. And a lot of those people maintain that to this day. And it was interesting, reading from the Tambo biography, Luli Kalinikos, and this is a quote from Tambo's notes in the book, where he was now defending this relationship, which by itself was very interesting for me, because troubled as that relationship was, he kept on, the two men kept on meeting over and over again. And listen to this, and I quote here from the book: "We are too purist politically, also orthodox. We run like a train on fixed rails, inflexible. We wear thin blinkers. We can barely hear what someone is saying." And at the time, Prince Buthelezi actually wanted the ANC to come out and openly endorse this project of theirs. But if you look at the history of this relationship, to this day, as I say, on the back of what was said at the weekend, you have people who are just simply not forgiving.
Well, there was that connection, there was that personal connection. I'm old enough to remember very well what happened in Natal and KwaZulu, as it was, from the 80s. And it's a history that's often not spoken about. It's not the only part of our history that we don't often speak about, but thousands of lives were lost, and things became deeply, deeply embittered. If you want to tell a story about pacifism, you can't, as a principle, you can't leave out the fact that there was so much organized violence in the 1980s and 1990s that cost so many lives. And certainly by that period, Nkatha, as it was, it only became the IFP, I think, in 1990, was very much integrated into the military and other political structures of the apartheid state. And there was a war. And people don't forget what happens in a war very easily. And I think it is important that we do remember that. We can't pretend those things didn't happen. But at the same time, today, right now, KwaZulu-Natal is a very violent place. There's a lot of violence within the ANC. There's been violence between the ANC and other political parties, and of course against independent activists. And I think there is a deep longing among many people to transcend that kind of politics where people in other organizations are seen as the enemy, and the enemy to be destroyed, not to be, debated or, contested in an election. So I think that desire to move past that kind of politics, ultimately a politics of war, is not just understandable, but is really important, and I think we should respond to it with a great deal of empathy. But simply erasing part of our history, a history that many people still carry the literal scars of on their bodies, would also be dangerous in another way. And it's generally understood, even in personal psychology, that this kind of moving on requires a reckoning with reality, that it shouldn't just, be based on a suppression of reality.
Mr. Tlhabisa, I mean, as from your vantage point, what are we to make, or when we talk to, future generations, especially, how do we approach, especially this period from, the 80s, 1980s, all the way to actually the eve of the election, and perhaps even a couple of years after that, your 96s. As someone who then has to, be the one driving this project of Prince Butheleziz's legacy, which of course is intertwined with the history of the IFP, the party that you now lead. When you reflect, what comes into your mind when people ask questions? How will you approach this particular era, which was characterized by so much violence? Thousands of people died, tens of thousands of people were displaced.
Vuyo, let me start firstly by addressing the truth that needs to be told for the good of our history. Prince Mangosuthu Butheleziz's relations with Oliver Tambo were very good. At one point, when Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi was looking for funding in Sweden, Sweden said they can only help him if Oliver Tambo nods, and Oliver Tambo nods. Oliver Tambo agreed with Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi that it will not be good to go to African countries and contest against disinvestment in South Africa. You go alone and defend the stance against disinvestment. I will not go. That showed that they had a good mutual respect. A similar respect was demonstrated by Madiba. Madiba, from prison, wanted to go and meet Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. And it was the ANC leaders, the likes of Harry Gwala, who stood on the way. If you come to President Thabo Mbeki is on record to have said, every time when Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi speaks, I ensure that I listen every word he utters. This therefore says, Vuyo, the people of South Africa should note Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi has been an acting state president of South Africa more than 22 times. These are the things people should reflect on, the kind of a leader whom they never had an opportunity to know him really and his views. Let me come then to the issue of violence. Violence affected both the ANC and the IFP. Out of 20,000 people who died out of violence, 12,000 are IFP members. The violence affected both of us. We need to come to a point that we need to heal the past, close the past, bring reconciliation to our people. All South Africans of goodwill, they want a brighter future for our children. I am very confident, Vuyo, that the program of reconciliation between the IFP and the ANC is possible, provided the ANC leaders are willing that we go this road. Why am I saying so? If you look at the membership of the IFP currently, Vuyo, it is predominantly young people and women. That tells you that the future generation, which is youth, believes in the IFP. the issue of violence is still debated, because there was a statement which you made, Vuyo, which links the IFP to the military sections of the apartheid government. I am really debating against that. Individual elements can be involved, but the truth of the matter, IFP members had to defend themselves against an organized attack. And if you look at violence in South Africa, it is not only IFP and ANC. Violence occurred between ANC and PAC, ANC and AZAPO. So now, a common denominator is not the IFP, but that is a question of the past. Now we have a responsibility that things went wrong during the 80s and 90s because of the fallout between the two political parties. We need to mend that fallout and heal that past and acknowledge that, yes, indeed, we have wounds, both sides, between ANC and IFP, and we cannot live in that past forever. In the spirit of social cohesion, in the spirit of reconciliation, building a future of people with one direction to the future, we need to close the wounds of the past and begin a new journey for the destination of our generation as a united nation, especially amongst the African people. This is very possible, provided both sections, we have people of goodwill, people who believe in the future, and also believe that the past can be healed, closed, as we understand what happened, but focus to the future for the interest of our country.
Dr. Peters, the past is the past. We need to move forward now.
Well, I mean, as I said, there's undeniably a desire and need for healing and for a transcendence of this politics of violence, what grassroots activists in Durban call the politic of blood. I think that has to be taken with the utmost seriousness. But when you talk about unity, you always have to ask what the basis of that unity will be. I mean, the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal is very different to what it was 10, 15, 20 years ago in terms of its politics. There are deeply conservative elements in it. And, you know, what is the basis of this unity? Is this the ANC moving towards forming a kind of more conservative bloc with a more ethnic element to it? I think we can't overlook those questions while we affirm that while we must acknowledge the past, the politics of it, the realities of what happened, you know, we can't, I mean, Harry Gwala was mentioned. We've got to think about people like David Ntombela and Peter Maritzburg, or Thomas Shabalala in Durban and Linda Lani, about those histories as well. But if there's a full acknowledgement of the past, a desire to, you know, Nelson Mandela's famous speech when he came to Durban in 1990, you know, throw your weapons into the sea. If there's a genuine desire to transcend that politics of violence, that's to be embraced. But you cannot erase the political question, what is the basis of that unity? And if it's a cohering of a conservative bloc, that's worrying, because there are really, really worrying elements about the ANC as it is in KwaZulu-Natal now.
Is that what you think it is?
I think it's possible. I mean, the ANC, okay, there's the kleptocratic element, but it is very violent. It continues to assassinate, well, there's intra-ANC violence, but it continues to assassinate grassroots activists. Abahlali Basumjondolo have lost 3 people this year to assassination already. There's no Beki Cele doesn't come. Ramaphosa doesn't say anything. There's no response. It doesn't seem to me that they are committed to a politics of peace. What it seems to me is that they know they're losing electoral support and they're looking to build a bloc. And if that bloc with Nkatha, which has always had a right-wing conservative politics, is moving in that direction, just as we see the emergence of conservative politics around Herman Mashaba and, other little projects, that could be worrying, because in the name of healing and peace, we could see something very dangerous cohering. So we would need to know, what are the principles of this unity? What is its view on xenophobia? What would Nkatha or IFP now say when the ANC say, as they often do when they go to an impoverished community in Durban, and they say to people, the reason why you're poor, you don't have houses, is because these people have come from Lusikisiki and they must go back to Lusikisiki. Will they condemn that? Because if they won't, then what is being proposed is a conservative realignment in the name of something that speaks to the desires of ordinary people. But ordinary people's desires are relentlessly co-opted by politicians. So you always have to be mindful of that and to see exactly what is being put on the table.
A quick one, Mr. Hlawisa. How would you characterize your leadership core? What kind of people are you? What drives you? Yes, you spoke about women, your appeal among women and young people. But what drives the leadership core? What values drive you?
The IFP Vuyo is a party that is the desire of the people of South Africa as we stand now. People of South Africa want a stable society. They want a political party that is able to deliver services. People of South Africa want a party that will make an economy, that will provide jobs, revive a broken economy, a workable economic policy. For ages, the IFP has been saying the SOEs are a dying zone for our economy. Billions that has been injected are not helping, and they have all collapsed. The IFP believes in good governance, and that is why the people of KwaZulu-Natal demonstrated beyond doubt in November last year that they want a party that is going to take them to the future in their local government sphere. And in 2024, they will also do the same. They will vote for a party that is demonstrating beyond doubt that corruption is an enemy for our people, and it is a cancer that must be taken out of the body politics of South Africa and ensure that the resources that are available are used at the advancement of our people in education, in health, social services, infrastructure. The IFP is against xenophobia, as my learned friend indicated just a few minutes ago. We have come out very clear that we believe in a united South Africa, but we are not afraid to say South Africans must come first. Foreign nationals who do not possess specialized skills should be assisted to go back into their respective countries and allow the people of South Africa to get job opportunities in driving Ubers, in working in the hotels, restaurants, construction industries, in specialized skills. There should be conditions of how long a foreign national is going to stay to transfer his skills. We put South Africans first. We believe in a united society, irrespective of race. We are not xenophobic, but we are not afraid to say South Africans should come as a priority.
Okay. If you've just joined us, of course, we are talking about the legacy of former IFP president, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. A few days ago, friends, colleagues, well-wishers, business people, community activists came together in Durban to launch the Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi Foundation, a vehicle that they say will be used to celebrate his life, but also preserve his legacy. Mr. Velengosini Hlabisa, the president of the IFP and successor to Prince Buthelezi, is the chairperson of that foundation. This conversation continues right after this. Welcome back, and if you've just joined us, we are in conversation with the president of the IFP, Mr. Velengosini Hlabisa, who is, of course, successor to Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. Also with us in studio is Dr. Richard Peterhouse, who is an academic, but also a journalist who has written extensively about our body politic over the past couple of decades. And all of this conversation, of course, happening on the back of that launch a few days ago of the Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi Foundation, which we are told is going to be a vehicle that's going to be used to not only celebrate his life, but also preserve his legacy. So this is perhaps, call it the beginning of us interrogating that legacy, and this won't be the last conversation you are, of course, going to hear on this matter. Dr. Peterhouse, I mean, we've, of course, the ANC of today is, as you said earlier, completely different from anything that we've seen, heard from before. It was interesting how you characterize this tunadering, to use a, and what it may mean. But is it something we should be worried about if two people decide to embark on a journey together, bound by whatever? Is it something to worry about? Because if one assumes that people or the electorate is able to see through whatever facade or anything for that matter that people may insist is what brings them together, they're able to see through that and decide whether they like what they're seeing or they don't, and then take decisions as voters.
Sure, I mean, people make their decisions, but part of how they make their decisions is through democratic disputation, the kind of thing we're doing now, discussions in the public sphere, debates, media. So we can affirm without reservation the right of people to make their own decisions, but that doesn't mean we don't engage in debates. And yeah, the political nature of the alliance or the tunadering that has been proposed has to be interrogated rigorously, just as we would with any of the other realignments that are happening as the ANC loses its moral authority and loses much of its support at the polls. We can't be naive about what comes next. And all the indications are nationally that what is most likely to come next is a kind of conservative alliance and a swing to the right in terms of economic policy, but in terms of a whole set of social issues as well. And that needs to be, rigorously examined and debated.
Mr. Hlabisa, I don't know if this matters to you at all. You will, if we go back, recall how the tunadering between the ANC and the National Party or New National Party, which at the end of the day meant that, the death of the new National Party at the feet of the ANC, which of course the ANC saw as a sweet victory, after all, the years of apartheid. Are you not concerned that perhaps you may well suffer the same fate, that your coming together may actually mean that you suffer the same fate that the NNP suffered?
Vuyo, the IFP will never diminish before the ANC. We have distinct political views and policies which will not make it possible for the two parties to come together. All that is possible is reconciliation and agree that we work for people of South Africa. The IFP Vuyo survived against all odds, which wanted to exterminate the IFP from the political scene. Now there is nothing that will make the IFP diminish. We are working with the ANC at a national level, in the same parliament. We are working with them at the provincial level, as well as in the local government sphere, one as an opposition and the other as a ruling party. As you know, that we are governing the majority of municipalities in KwaZulu-Natal, and the ANC is on an opposition bench. Even in 2024, things will change. The IFP will never diminish because of us working together in terms of building one South Africa. We are clear. We are united in terms of purpose, of building a united society. But the IFP, in terms of economy, is against the communist views which dominate the ANC economic policies. So in that score, we will never agree. As you know, Vuyo, it is the IFP through Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, with his foresight, that came with the principle of 3 spheres of government, because IFP is a federal party in belief, while ANC is unitary in terms of policy regarding governance. But to answer direct your question, no, we do not have any fear. The beliefs of Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi rather can consume the ANC, because the truth of the matter, the ANC is losing power from metros to local municipalities. The next step is going to be provinces. So the IFP, on the other hand, is rising. We have a great responsibility on our shoulder to promote the legacy of the man who demonstrated to be a hero and served the people of South Africa through honesty, respect, and servant leadership. Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, in education, he demonstrated that even during the time of violence, when there was a slogan that liberation now and education later, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi championed the slogan of education for liberation. He built schools. He built Mangosuthu University of Technology for black engineers, where black people were not having an opportunity. He championed education. He championed the economy by ensuring of inviting foreign investors to invest by opening industries in our country. He demonstrated good governance. He ensured gender equality, because there is the truth people do not know, that before 1994, it is Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi who accorded our women positions as ministers in the erstwhile KwaZulu government. It is him who accorded women who, according to apartheid, when the husband dies, she had to lose a house in a township. But Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi ensured that women, even if they lose their husband, but they retain the ownership of land and property in urban areas. Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi is a champion of natural conservation for more than 70 years. This is the legacy we are going to promote and preserve for our future in protecting our heritage.
Are you excluding at all the possibility that someone in the ANC may have told themselves that, look, with Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi on his way out, perhaps you as a party have become a lot more vulnerable than perhaps has ever been the case before. So confronted, with a party that's dwindling, losing people, they may be looking at you as a way out of the crisis that they're in, and hence, all these utterances, all this tunadering. I mean, do you not even think that is a possibility? Whatever you may think of yourselves, that you are as strong as you say you are, and no one can do that to you. But can you really exclude that possibility? That someone out there may actually be thinking like that?
Vuyo, someone out there can have such a thinking, but on the ground, the ANC people in KwaZulu-Natal, if I can make a very close reference, they know that the IFP is hard to break and will never be easy to consume the IFP. All they can do is to work closer to the IFP with a hope that should they lose the province in 2024, instead of them being taken out of a coalition, maybe the IFP can consider going into a coalition with the ANC. Because the truth, Vuyo, look at the metros. The ANC is being driven out in all metros and is now being driven out in almost all municipalities in KwaZulu-Natal. And the next thing that is very likely, they might lose Gauteng, lose KwaZulu-Natal, already Western Cape is not under their control. Those are the big three in South Africa. If you don't control these three big provinces, and the likelihood in Eastern Cape, things have collapsed, if a party that can be emerged there that is strong, the only hope the ANC should be looking at the IFP is to get a partner in a coalition post-2024, but not in the intention of trying to win the IFP over, because we are stronger for that as a political party now.
Dr. Peterhouse, I mean, just your thoughts on whether or not the IFP is more vulnerable than perhaps it ever was now that Prince Buthelezi is on his way out. And do you put it past the ANC, whatever your theory or reservations, the fact that someone in the ANC may actually be thinking along those lines, precisely because they're running out of options, because 2024 is going to be a watershed, everyone tells us. So you've got to move in areas where you can.
Look, I mean, in politics, unity is seldom a matter of principle. It's usually about interests, material political interests. Clearly, as has been said, the ANC is rapidly losing support. They're losing municipalities, they're losing metros. Clearly, the politics of the immediate future will be based around coalitions. And equally clearly, different constituencies, different organizations, different parties are maneuvering to try and advance their interests there. I mean, the EFF has also indicated that it's now willing to engage the ANC. I mean, I think in pure, political terms, if, politics in terms of power, it does make sense for the ANC and the IFP in KwaZulu-Natal to form an alliance because the ANC wants to hold on. The IFP wants access to power as well. Of course, there are always risks with those kinds of alliances that one could swallow the other or exploit the other. Those risks are there, but from what I'm hearing, what's been proposed from the IFP side is a very conservative basis for that kind of alliance, which of course electorally might work for them because that seems to be where we are going.
Mr. Hlabi, just as before you make your concluding remarks, I just want to take a couple of tweets from people who are watching this program, who have sent us some for you to respond to. Let's see if we can put them up. We do have okay. Can we bring up some of those tweets? Okay, we do have Gishma Johnson says, for a party that has been around for so long, it only has 14 seats in parliament. Should the IFP not be a strong opposition by now? Let's see if we can take another one. The only legacy of Prince Buthelezi I know is that of Bantustan leader who worked with apartheid in the mid-80s, murdering young people in the then PE as it was. We called his brigade Amachaka, who works an extended arm of the regime, so he was anti-struggle. ANC and PE wasn't attacking IFP yet. Prince Buthelezi reserved or served his apartheid masters well in the mid-80s and sent his brigades here just to kill and destroy those who were demanding what we now enjoy. He bears legacy of a traitor who still benefits fruits of what he fought against. Your quick closing remarks?
People like Mxolisi Mulman are unfortunate in our society. They belong to the past and they are not living with the reality. The reality of violence, IFP lost more than 12,000 of its leaders. They did not kill themselves. Really, we should close the past and acknowledge that things went wrong between the IFP and the ANC. Coming to the first person, what people should acknowledge with the IFP, at one stage we had coped with so many people, and you know where it is now. The IFP is on a rise as we speak, and that is what is frightening other people in South Africa. Rest assured, in 2024, you will see the figures of the IFP in the National Assembly will almost be doubled in what they are. In KwaZulu-Natal, we will be in charge of the province of KwaZulu-Natal. We said it last year that we will win more municipalities in KwaZulu-Natal, and it is exactly what we said. As I close, I would want to welcome the initiative by the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal in extending a hand of a reconciliation with the IFP, because that is a new direction by the ANC leaders. But the reconciliation between the IFP and the ANC rests with the national leaders of the ANC, led by Cyril Ramaphosa, and the national leadership of the IFP. And I want to appeal to the ANC. We need a stable society as a country. We need our leaders to work together, bring solutions for the betterment of our people, fight against unemployment, recover our economy, infrastructure, and this can be done at a stage when we agree that we coexist as people of South Africa and as political parties, we have a responsibility of contributing in building a bright future for us and our generation. And the road to reconciliation is key between ANC and IFP.
Mr. Hlabisa, let me thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you very much, Vuyo and Dr. Peterhouse.
Dr. Peterhouse, thank you to you too for availing yourself this evening for this conversation. One of many, I'm sure. Thank you so much. Well, that's our show for this evening. To join us again tomorrow night, same time. Have a good night.